So my name is Wojciech Barta, and I would like to share you my opinion about QA mentoring on agile projects. At first, few things about me. Yesterday, I have been in test industry for 10 years, so finally a decade. And I work in Vendavo, small company like 100 people in Czech Republic, and I do mentoring, trainings, agile coaching, and so on. And now let's start with mentoring. So at first, I would like to define what mentoring itself is. And I like pictures. So here we have some chart, when here we have a duration of relationship from short ones to long ones. Here we have power of relationship from basically no relationship at all to very strong. And here on this axis, we have the way how we transfer the knowledge. So from explicit, based on facts, to something really based on emotions and so on. And if we place these activities, training, coaching, and mentoring on this chart, we start with a training. So basically, you don't need any relationship with your trainer. It could be external and so on. Trainings are short. Yes, sometimes they are 2 weeks. I had a 2 weeks training. It was a nightmare. But they are no months or years. And sharing of knowledge is really practical. It's based on facts, it's explicit, usually one topic, and so on. Then something in the middle is coaching. It's long-term. There needs to be some relationship between coach and so on, but still he can be external. You see him like once per month, once per week, and so on. So something in the middle. And on the top right, we have mentoring. And mentoring, it's really long-based activity. Sometimes it takes years to build a mentoring relationship with your mentor. And it's based on very good relationship, and it's very often about emotions, because people are different, everybody needs a different approach, and so on. So it's really long-term, based on history and so on. And my experience in my mentoring, especially in IT, is that it's somewhere in the middle between coaching and mentoring, because very often people in IT, they are not so emotional, they are introverts and so on, so be careful about emotions in IT. So now we know what mentoring is, and I would like to explain why I think we need mentoring in QA. Because by training, you get skills. By coaching, your talent emerges. And by mentoring, you get wisdom. And I assume that we all work in some agile environment, or we are trying, not necessarily succeeding, but as was said in previous talk, today's world is agile. And there is something called Agile Manifesto. We all heard about it. It's kind of Bible for us. But there is also something called Test Manifesto. And the structure is same, and I choose four the most important things. First is that we are focusing on preventing bugs over finding them later. Second one is that we are testing continuously over testing at the end. We are focusing on building the software, not only trying to break it. And last one, the quality is responsibility of whole team. It's not only about us testers. And same as with Agile Manifesto, there is value here. This is still important. We need to find bugs, we need to test at the end, and so on. But we value this more, and that's our focus. And if you work in the company, when you have dozens of QAs, there can be different attitudes about this, different opinion, sometimes they are not aligned, and so on. So you need somebody who will help them, your QA team, to achieve these goals. And these are QA mentors. And what they do is that they help to achieve the same goals. And we all should have the same goals. And that's the first question in every company. What are our goals from quality point of view? When you know them, these guys can help you. The best is if your mentors are internal, because they have the knowledge and so on. But these people, these guys, they need to want. They need to want to invest their time and so on. So few things about the goals. And when you go home, try the same exercise. Choose 5, 10 things which defines your quality. So for me, I would like to deliver expected quality. I would like to enjoy my work. I would like to be happy. I would like to get a quick feedback. And I would like all stakeholders to be satisfied, because this is my definition of quality. Quality for me, it's satisfaction of all stakeholders. So this is what we would like to achieve. So now the question is how to build our mentoring team. And the typical way, how I saw the mentoring teams are built, is that you choose the most experienced, most skilled QAs from your team. It's not a bad idea, but you need to know that mentors need to have both skills, soft ones and hard ones. And sometimes these soft skills are more important, because especially in IT, these expert matters, they somehow or sometimes miss this skill. They cannot communicate, they don't listen, and so on. So your mentors, at first, they need to believe on what they are doing. It's not like selection. You will be mentor, and you will share your ideas with others. No, it should be like, I would like to be mentor, I would like to help, and so on, and so on. And then they need to listen more than talk, and then advise and communicate, but be very skilled in negotiation. And that's the most challenging thing, to say things in the way to be accepted, because sometimes you choose not proper language, and it will not be communicated well, and so on. And of course, your mentors need hard skills. Without them, they will have no respect from others. So they need to have experience with Agile. I prefer to have both good and failures, because we are learning from our failures. They need to understand domain testing and so on. But don't forget about the soft skills. They are very important. So now we have a team, and let's assume that you have like 30 QAs, so it's really a team, at least 3 people. My experience is that if you do your mentoring well, you cannot do more than 10 people. And it's even like very big challenge, like full-time job mentoring 10 people. So sometimes your mentoring team will be bigger. And then they need some structure, some agreement. And I call it mentoring checklist. And usually it has 3 main parts. Something about quality assurance, something about process, and something about people, about the team. And it's a starting point, so it's never-ending story. You're still evolving this checklist. But the important thing is that it's agreement. It's set of topics, questions, and ideas we would like to do on all our projects. Of course, every project is different, so approach will be different, but this is what we would like to focus on. And these are 3 areas, and you will have a possibility to download the entire checklist from conference page, but I choose the most important one from each area to describe now. So let's start with a process. Process area can be divided to 2 sub-areas. When the first one is about project kickoff, before it starts. And that's really important to have mentor from the start, or at least to have QA from the start, because sometimes you don't have them from the start, they join after second iteration and so on. So what we need to ask ourselves and the entire team from the start of the project. First, who are our stakeholders? So are we missing somebody? Do we understand them? Do we know their expectations? And so on. Then very important question is if it is Agile project. Because sometimes it could be some hybrid, sometimes it could be waterfall, and you need totally different approach in these hybrids and waterfalls. So answer this. And if it is Agile project, then do we work in iterations, so Scrum, something? Or do we work continuously, like Kanban and so on? Again, this will define later approaches, later question challenges, and so on, because they are quite different. And then a question especially for customer. Do you understand your backlog as a wish list? Because if there is understanding from customer that this backlog, what I have on the start, it's frozen and it's a promise, then it's not Agile project. So this question is mainly for customer. And I guarantee you, the first time you ask them, they will say, no, it's a promise. So then explain it to them and reevaluate, because they need to understand that nothing is fixed, with exception of time and money, but not a scope. And then the second area about process is evaluated continuously. So I recommend you to have your mentoring sessions with every team at least once per week, sometimes more often, but at least weekly. You should evaluate these things from perspective of process. So first is about planning. How we are grooming our user stories. Do we understand them? Do we size them properly? How do we estimate? Are we okay with story points only, or do we need hours, and so on? And how do we plan? Do we plan only on the level of iteration, or do we have Kanban approach? Do we have releases, some milestones, and so on? And then two more questions about process. First is about demo. So do we have demo after each sprint? Do we have all stakeholders on this demo, or relevant stakeholders? And do we have feedback, or is it like, it looks nice, or it doesn't? But we really need to have valuable feedback on the demos. And the last one, it's about retrospectives. Whatever Agile approach you are doing, you should do retrospectives. It's the most important session in Agile because it's about learning. But I very often see that it's not a real retrospective, that it's some kind of crying session. You identify a lot of bad things, and the next iteration, they are same and new. So what only matters is, how do you solve the bad things from your retrospectives? You should plan them, you should have a time for them, and so on. So that was about process. And now this is a testing conference, so a bit about quality assurance. But I will not start with a testing. I will start with this defect prevention. And the first question is it more important than finding defects later? And the easy way how to evaluate is, do you have enough time to finish your testing? If not, then you probably have no time for defect prevention. So maybe you need to have more QAs, or you need to automate more things, and so on and so on. But this really should be priority one for you. And if you are failing in that, I always said that it's a failure of QA. It's your responsibility to teach the rest of the team that defect prevention is our goal. Otherwise, your problem. And then, from defect prevention point of view, you should plan some actions. You should execute them, evaluate, and so on. And I recommend even to put them to backlog and as something non-technical user story. I would like to do this sprint, I need a time for that, and so on. Then evaluate, learn, improve, and repeat. And repeat is very important, because Agile for me, it's about delivering real value in stable pace and in repeatable pace. So succeeding in one sprint, okay, could be luck, but succeeding in 10 sprints in a row, that's a trend, and that's what you are looking for. Next thing in QA, it's still not about testing, but it's about requirements. Because without proper requirements, you cannot succeed. So the mentoring areas here starts with definition of ready and definition of done. At first, do we have any? If yes, are we following that? If no, then that's the first thing to fix. Don't continue in this list, fix first this. Then, is our developing based on good business understanding? Do we have acceptance criteria? Are user stories in reasonable size, and so on? And is everything up to date? These are the things you have to ask as a mentor. You have to evaluate the answers. You need to help them to fix problems if there are any, and there are always some. And finally, something about testing. And even if you do your best in defect prevention, there will still be bugs, and you need to find them. And you should have a good balance of test activities. You have functional testing, important and so on, but you should always have a time for other things, like exploratory testing and so on. And maybe if you don't, then start with exploratory testing. At first, in each sprint, I will do exploratory testing, and then, if there is a time, I will do functional testing. If not, developers will do functional testing. They are very good in functional testing, maybe sometimes better than us. We are, as QAs, very good in exploratory testing. And then about test cases. That's a topic for another talk, but you should understand what is the purpose of test cases. There should not be misused for something like learning and substitution of documentation and so on. They are for you to help you with functional testing. They should have good level of abstraction. When I always say steps are optional and avoid them if you can. You don't need them if you have a knowledge. And again, as a requirement, everything needs to be up to date. So if you have too detailed test cases, you will spend a lot of time on maintenance. And then automation. In testing, you have no chance to survive in agile world without automation. Most of the functional testing should be automated, and you should have automation on all of the levels, from unit testing, over integration testing, to UI testing, and so on. Otherwise, you will be still wasting of time on manual testing, and you will have no time for this fun stuff like exploratory testing and so on. And then the last question is about reporting. You should report honestly to all stakeholders, and you should share relevant information. And to be honest is the key here, because sometimes we fake our reports, and you should never do that. You should always share the truth. It means share success and share failures. So that was about QA, and the last point is about the team. And this is the most important one, because we are all different. So first question is, do we work as a team? Or do we have somebody who is like very negative, or who don't want to collaborate, who do not share our ideas and so on? Then you have to fix it. Sometimes it's only a bad understanding. Sometimes you should switch people. If you have like 5 people who agrees and somebody who is very negative and so on, maybe build a team of negative people, and they will work very efficiently together. And then you should respect everybody, you should trust everybody, and so on. And you will find a lot of problems here, in this area, and these problems will be root causes for other problems, not communicating well, and so on. And the last bullet here is about customer involvement, because customer is part of your team. And for my project, this is the biggest challenge. We work with companies, huge companies who are used to work in Agile, who are not used to work in Agile, they are used in Waterfall, or they have very bad experience with Agile. So you need to continuously educating your customer, ask for involvement, they should be on demo, they should test after each iteration, they should answer question immediately. If not, speak with your management. It's usually in your contract. There is usually a section about customer responsibilities, and they should do it, or they can outsource it, they can hire somebody, but you need to have answers for your question. So that was a really brief summary of the most important sessions there. And this will help you to evaluate, plan, and track your things. So whenever you are asking the question to your as a mentor to your team, you first evaluate it, then you have to plan an action for each thing you found, then you need to track it, and then you need to reevaluate it. I saw so many times that the mentoring ended in the same way as the retrospectives. We found something, we never solved it, so it ended somewhere here. We know we have problems. Sometimes we even do not have a plan for that, and if we have a plan, we are not following that. So then it's another wasting of time as ineffective retrospectives. Don't do mentoring if it doesn't bring any value. And every project is different. Every project has different context. So you have your checklist, it's an agreement, but then an approach, it depends on the context, on the people, time, purpose of the project, scales, and so on. So it needs to be based on relationship. It's a long-term activity, and do not think you will solve all of your problems, that you can go through that mind map, which I will share with you, in 1 or 2 iterations. Sometimes, even on one project, you have no chance to fix everything. Focus on the most important things. And then you will achieve this. And I would say that the most important here is that you need to want, and team needs to want, and your company needs to want, because it's about investment. Investment about the time, effort, and also money, because if you don't want to invest to improvements, if everybody is overloaded and so on, then this is another pain to do. And here, you can download the entire mentoring checklist. It's a big mind map with these areas, QA, process, mentoring itself, and so on. And you will find a lot of things there, a lot of areas. And as I said, this could be years to go through that mind map on each project. And sometimes you only start with some ideas, you solve them, and then you go and go and go and reevaluate. And by the way, it's a living document, so whenever I have a new idea, I will update it. So yeah, you can try to refresh it every, I don't know, half an year, something like that. That's all from me. Now it's time for questions.
Fortunately, you have answered the second one, because someone were asking for the checklist, so it's downloadable. Let's answer then the first question. Some are confused by coaching versus mentoring, and your presentation seems to picture Agile coach role. Is QA mentor similar to Agile coach? That's the question.
It's similar. It has some overlaps, and the overlap would be this process area, because the process is about Agile and so on. But then these QA mentors, they are also very skilled in testing, so they can help and they can evaluate all aspects of testing and to go deeply, like to functional testing, boundaries testing, and so on. So that would be the difference. And Agile coaches, they maybe are even better communicators. They can play some games and so on, speak with more different stakeholders. So I would say that they have the higher level of these soft skills, focusing on Agile. And usually they have more experience with different Agile frameworks, methodologies, and so on.
And one final question. Mentoring should be personal. How do you believe a personal touch can be included in the model you shared recently?
Yeah, that's a perfect question. And I said that the maximal, one mentor can do 10 people, and it means full-time job. But I do 4 people, and it's 2 days for me. So at least once per week, I sit together with these guys, with the team. I have like 1 hour for each of them. But when they need more, this is priority 1 for me. So yes, I am still assigned to some projects, but if my mentoring needs more time, then I will have more time for that, and I will postpone some other things. So if you think that you will choose 1 or 2 people for your entire QA team, then it needs to be a full-time job there. And if you are not co-located, that's another challenge, but we are. So I'm traveling Ostrava, Prague, and other cities and so on to have the face-to-face communication. And we know each other for years, so that could also help. And you will build it over time.